Let me just start off by saying that, of course, I haven't had all night to prepare for this press conference. Uber has apparently sent a letter to me and to the members of City Council requesting a repeal of Houston's current regulations for Uber. And let me just start off by saying that I met with the key top representatives of Uber in my office a couple of months ago. More like an introductory meeting. At that time, they did not indicate at all that they were going to be pulling out from the city of Houston. And that was 2 months ago. And today I'm being presented a letter essentially saying that we're demanding that we repeal our regulations. So let me start off by stating that the city of Houston does not compromise on public safety. Okay, the city of Houston does not compromise on public safety. I will also say that we appreciate the service Uber provides. Thousands of Houstonians use the service, and we have always worked towards a regulatory environment that allows the service to be provided while protecting public safety. We welcome Uber to Houston. We created regulations to allow them to operate here before all those other cities did. We just want them to be safe. And I will indicate that Uber and Lyft came into the Houston market in February of 2014 illegally. That was in February of 2014. The City Council passed an ordinance in August of 2014 and took effect, I believe, in November of 2014. And since that time, things have been working in this city. The key point of contention for Uber is a fingerprint background check. Uber's national background check doesn't include Delaware, Massachusetts, South Dakota, or Wyoming. We had a driver come through who had been through Uber's background check who had 24 aliases, 5 birth dates, 10 social security numbers, and an active warrant for arrest. The city's fingerprint background check found that hundreds of Uber applicants for licenses who had been through their background check had prior criminal histories for murder, assault and battery, indecent exposure, DWI, DUI, prostitution, and aggravated robbery. Uber has sued us, the City of Houston, and the State Attorney General's office to prevent us from telling the public how successful they have been in Houston. And I noticed in the letter that they said one of the reasons why they were demanding us to change our regulatory structure was because we were hurting their business. But at the same time, they're making that statement to the general public. They have sued the city and the state attorney generals so that I cannot tell you how many drivers they now currently have in the city of Houston. What I can tell you is that if the city's process protected even one person as it relates to public safety, it has been worth it. And in this city, we cannot afford to compromise public safety. Our own data shows that 47% of Uber's drivers who came through the process reported no delays, 47%. 67% reported they got their license in less than 2 weeks. Houston is the 4th largest city in the country, and we love Uber to stay. We want them to stay, but only if they follow our rules. And the rules that we have put in place creates a fair playing ground, a level playing field for everyone, for Uber, for the cabs, the limousine companies. Everyone is operating under the same set of rules. And I think it is inherently unfair for Uber to be demanding one set of rules for them and a different set of rules for someone else, for the others. There are plenty of other law-abiding transportation companies willing to work here and respect our laws and keep Houstonians safe. Now, I realize there's a campaign that's taking place in Austin, and it's ironic that we're getting this letter today when the campaign in Austin is scheduled to conclude on May the 7th. The city of Houston first heard about this from reporters in Austin. No one has picked up a phone and called me. No one has said to me over the last 2 months, Mayor, if the city doesn't make these changes, we're going to have to leave the city of Houston. They've spent more than $3 million advocating for a ballot initiative in Austin to ban fingerprint and cut corners on public safety regulations. Let me just say to you that this is just not how we do it in the city of Houston. This is not the way to come to the table. It's not the way to express your point of view by basically saying, if you don't change the rules, and if you don't give us what we want, we are going to leave. This is just not the way to do it. I want them to stay. I hope they will stay. But if I have to choose, and I believe if this city has to choose between public safety on one hand and Uber staying on the other, I don't think it is even close. And I hope that the members of City Council, and I believe just by their presence here, also believe that as well. And so I don't just speak for them. Let me ask them to voice their own sentiments. Let me start with Michael Kubosh, and we'll come this way. Councilmember Michael Kubosh.
Yes, those of you in the media know this is how they came into the city of Houston. They pushed their way in. They operated illegally. They asked us to change our ordinances. And then once we didn't change them the right way, Lyft left. And now Uber is pushing us to change our ordinances or they're going to leave. I came to support Mayor Turner and not to allow our mayor, our city council, our people of this city to be held hostage by this company and their procedures and their doing business. So as I had told Lyft when they came and said they'd leave if we didn't change our policy and they left, all I can say is they're free to go. I can't hold them here. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Jack Christie.
I just always felt that it should be a level playing field with all the transportation services. So if someone can be fingerprinted in the other services, why can't they be fingerprinted with Uber? You know, if you've got nothing to hide, don't worry about fingerprints.
Councilmember Renner Stardick.
I'm the chair of Public Safety and Homeland Security. I also worked very hard and spent many hours with the TNCs on this issue, and to make sure that persons with disabilities were served, to make sure that we had an even playing field, that public safety was the #1 issue addressed. And for them to come back now and circle after we spent so much time working with them and others to come to an agreement on how we could move forward, it's disappointing. As the mayor said, this is not how we do it in Houston. We come to the table, we work together. And I did put a lot of time, of my own time. Councilmember Green put a lot of his time into this initiative, and it is disappointing. I will give Uber credit. I always want to make sure that I give credit where credit is due. Uber Access has recently been rolled out for persons with disabilities. But we also need to make sure that we honor the agreements that we had when we negotiated with them the last time. So thank you.
And Councilmember Dave Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. And I agree with the mayor's stance on this. We want Uber to operate in the city, but 18 months ago, they negotiated in good faith with Ms. Tina Paez and the Administrative and Regulatory Affairs Department of the City of Houston. They were front and central with understanding the rules and regulations of which they would abide by, which includes background fingerprint checks. And now we're sitting here today and they choose not to operate in the city. When I talk to the Uber drivers, I think there's an oversaturation of Uber drivers in the city of Houston. They're not getting the anticipated volume of activity that they anticipated. Thus, they're only operating 10 hours a week. I think that's the biggest concern, not the overall position of the city of Houston, which they in good faith negotiated with us about 18 months ago.
Let me say there are 2,400, approximately 2,400 cab permits in the city of Houston. Uber has considerably more drivers than that. It is unfortunate that because of their court action preventing me to tell you how many drivers they have, but let's just say, based on the stats, the regulatory rules that we have in place are not preventing them from getting the drivers that they need in the city of Houston. Now, anticipating, after looking at what was taking place in Corpus Christi, in Austin, in other cities, and the action that Uber has been taking across the country, I will tell you that I instructed the Administrative Regulatory Agency, TINA, to start several weeks ago preparing and to take, for the city to take whatever initiatives it needs to take to make sure that the people in the city of Houston provide the services they need. Because in the end, it's about the people, the users themselves. And so we have been exploring many different options, expanding the city's platform, looking at increasing the number of permits that exist, touching bases with others who want to come into our market. At the end of the day, it's the people themselves, Houstonians, that want to be served. And in this city, people are taking their cars. If I can borrow something from Councilmember Stardick, they are getting into their cars, or they're called a cab, or they're getting on light rail. And so over the last several weeks, I've had my administration working to be prepared, just in case Uber, for example, decide to take the actions that they have. And so we will be moving even at a quicker pace to make sure that the Houstonians are not left out. I will tell you from my point of view, I have an Uber app on my phone. You know, I would love for them to stay. I want them to stay. I want them to do business. But I think most Houstonians would not appreciate anyone coming to you and holding a gun to your head and said, either give up your wallet, so to speak, or you're gone. I'm a native Houstonian. The approach that they have taken is not the way we do business in the city of Houston. It's just not the way we do business. I'm more than willing to sit down and talk to you and discuss what things you may think you need. But to tell the city of Houston, you either give us what we want or we are gone, recognizing that the Super Bowl is coming down the road, is not the way you play business in the fourth largest city in the country. So I hope they stay. I want them to stay. But this is not the way to do it. Having said that, yes, Maya.
Do you think it's an empty threat, or do you think because of what's going on in Austin, or do you think they're legitimate? I mean, this is the fourth largest city in the country. It's not like leaving Corpus Christi. It's not the apples and oranges here.
I can't speak for them. All I can tell you is that I sat down with them 2 months ago, face to face. They didn't tell me that they were thinking about leaving or they were going to leave. We talked about fingerprints and background checks. I indicated to them that my number one concern is public safety. That's what I told them. My number one concern is public safety. And I'm willing to talk to you about anything as long as we are not compromising the public safety. That's something that I don't think Houstonians would forgive me for.
Do you see Houston, or Uber rather, as a public safety app in itself, in that it offers those, students, adults, everyone who may be going out at night, a different route as opposed to drinking and driving? I think a lot of people think that Uber, if it's lost, is going to be a public safety loss in itself.
Well, I think there are several modes of transportation that we offer in the city of Houston. Uber happens to be one. I think to the extent, for example, if we expand the platform and there are more drivers, more companies and others that are coming into our market, people want to get from point A to point B. They want to get there safely, okay? But public safety is a part of the component. The fingerprinting, the background checks, they're not slowing down Uber from getting the drivers that they want. That's a red herring. And if, for example, our rules are preventing them from getting the drivers that they need, then why don't they tell you how many drivers they have? So it kind of puts you in a position of, they just say, we're not getting our drivers. We don't get enough drivers because of the regulatory rules that the city have put in place. But, by the way, the city of Houston, because of our lawsuit, can't tell you how many drivers that we have permitted. Isn't that a little bit shaky? So I think the better question to Uber is, if you feel this way, if you believe that the regulatory environment in Houston is preventing you from getting the drivers you need, tell us how many drivers you have. And then come back and talk to me. But I will tell you, Uber, since they have been in business in the city of Houston, Uber has considerably more drivers than the permits that are given to every cab company in the city of Houston.
To be clear, we consider Uber drivers kind of like cab drivers. I know it's a ride-sharing service, but it's similar to calling a cab. You guys, in terms of the fingerprinting, in terms of the backgrounds, have never been asking folks who are applying to be drivers to do anything that cab drivers aren't doing, correct?
Right. It's a level playing field. What we ask of Uber drivers, we ask of our own cab drivers as well. Is that?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. We're not asking Uber drivers to do any more. In fact, they can get a provisional permit, 30 days. If there's a driver for Uber, or if Uber has a driver, they don't have to start with that background check and the fingerprinting. They're given 30 days. They can start becoming being a driver for Uber. It's only when they're seeking the 2-year license do they have to go through the fingerprint and the background check. And am I correct on that? So that's, again, what they're putting out is factually incorrect. We made the exception back in August of 2014 to accommodate Uber. City Council made that exception. But Uber now is coming, after getting into the market, Uber, and then, it's like getting into the market, trying to get you hooked, recognizing that after we get you hooked, then we're going to really drag you, okay? So this is the equivalent of getting into the market, being okay with the regulatory environment to get you in, and now that we got a lot of Houstonians that are utilizing the Uber service, they are hoping that Houstonians who are relying on Uber will pressure the mayor and the members of city council so that you're saying, we don't want to lose Uber. We don't want to lose Uber. So call your city council, call your mayor after getting your instance hooked. Well, I hope Houstonians will understand, if we allow this type of tactic to take place by this particular entity today, others will be doing the same thing down the road. And we cannot and we should not compromise on public safety. You can't compromise on public safety. Not in this environment. You cannot compromise on public safety. I'll sit down and I'll talk with them on anything else, but simply will not compromise on public safety.
Are you concerned they might go with a referendum, like what they're doing in Austin, like put it up for a vote, spend a couple $1 million?
I can't speak to that one.
Is there something you would streamline to the city's process?
I'm sorry, what do you mean?
Is there something you would streamline on the licensing process that may expedite the time it takes for someone to come through the program?
But don't just go on the factual information that they're giving you. Some of the people who are seeking to be drivers for Uber or even for our taxi cabs, you can get a permit, some get it in 2 days. On average, it's 11 days. It's not the 4 months that they put out in their letter.
I'm not suggesting it is, but is there a way to streamline even that? Can 2 days become 1? Can 11 become 7?
Well, right now, if you want to be a driver, there is no delay because you get a provisional license.
Okay.
You get a provisional license right now. So we're not talking about 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. For 30 days, you're getting the license, and you only have to go through the process when you're coming up for your two-year license. What Uber is asking for, basically what they're saying, is that we don't want to be governed at all. Now, you govern everybody else. For taxi cab companies and everybody, send them through the regulatory process. But for us, because so many people like us and utilizing us, we think we've reached a point where we can simply demand that we don't want to be governed by any regulations, and even if it's for public safety, no, we don't want it. And if something happens every now and then, it's justified because there are thousands of people that are utilizing our service. So it's the cost of doing business. Well, that's a cost that none of us can afford. Okay? That price is too high. And if they felt so strongly, they should have made these demands before they entered into the market and worked with the mayor and members of city council to come up with this regulatory structure. The best time, the right time, the best time to have argued their position was back in August of 2014. And not to come here, you know, quite frankly, I've only been here less than 4 months. You know, and then to make this sort of a demand. I've been a lawyer for 32 years, and I think I'm a pretty good one. Okay, I think I'm a pretty good one. They are playing high stakes, and they're rolling the dice. They are rolling the dice. Well, you can never be so big that you miss. I think they're doing their Uber customers a disservice, and I think they're doing a disservice for the city of Houston. And this is not the way we should be conducting business. Now, I'm more than willing to sit down and talk with you, but I'm not going to sit down and talk with you if you're going to hold a gun to my head. I'm not doing that. Not now, not anytime. Okay? It's not the way we do business in Houston. Now, they may prevail other places, but we're not going to do business this way here. And you're certainly not going to do business with me like this.
And you're saying, Mayor, that in the very beginning you said that the city's background checks have caught some folks that Uber's background checks hadn't, but you couldn't give, but you can't give us specific numbers on the number of people they've caught, or you're...
How many? I think we have specific.
We do, but we're not allowed to disclose that either.
We can't disclose that. Tell them to drop their lawsuits, Maya, and I'll be more than happy to have a one-on-one interview with you, and then a one-on-one interview with you, and you, and the rest of you. But their lawsuit prevent us from disclosing information on the number of lawsuits and the number of permits, the number of drivers that are operating on their behalf in this city. What I can say to you is that they are operating with a considerably more drivers than all of the cab companies and limousine companies combined. Literally, they have a lot of drivers in the city of Houston. But I can't, I know the number. I just can't tell it to you because they filed a lawsuit. So they're forcing us to be quiet, and then they issue their letter and saying that they are being hurt by our regulatory environment, but they won't allow all the information to be on the table for you to make your own assessments and judgments.
Looking ahead, I mean, let's say Uber does decide to leave the city. One concern that a lot of folks have is the cost comparison between taking a taxi, taking Uber, or taking another form of driving like Lyft. Is that something that you guys are going to be looking into in the future? Is this cost difference?
We've already started looking at it. We've already started looking at ways to expand our platform. We've already started looking at how we can expand the number of drivers, talking with other companies who have indicated that they stand ready to take advantage of the fourth largest market in the city. At the end of the day, people do want to be able to have the convenience of being able to pick up a phone and utilize their apps to get from point A to point B. That's the only thing that ultimately matters. It doesn't have to be Uber. They're not the only ones that can design a platform. The private market is full of people.
And they surge prices.
And the surge prices that sometimes take place. And we were hearing that during the floods. Okay, so there's no one person that has to do it. So we'll be looking at all of that. But again, I'm not saying thank you Uber and go home. I would love for them to do business in this city. But I think the approach that they have taken makes it very, very difficult. And but the door is always open, and I look forward to continue to talking to them. But again, I heard about the letter, well, I heard about it on social media before I saw it. Okay, that's how I got my news. I got my news. They told me on social media. I had to look at the tweet again. But that's how I got the news. So I'm gonna tweet back. Look, this is just not it's not the way to do business. I know, and I want to say to Houstonians, I know Houstonians love the service that they provide. I understand that. But public safety is real. And you could have been using it, you may be using it, and everything is fine. But I promise you there will probably be a lot more media cameras and a lot more press here if we let go of the regulatory environment, if we compromise public safety, and then a week or a month from now something happened, you will be right here demanding, did we give up too much? Okay? Did we sacrifice Houstonians' best interests? And I promise you, the picture probably in the paper or the pictures of us on the camera is not going to be our best pictures. Okay? So, I mean, it's fine. It's one thing to be having this conversation when everything appears to be okay. It's another thing if we give them what they want and something then happens, then who do you think the people are going to hold responsible? Uber? No. They're going to hold each one of us responsible. Okay.
Why is Houston then the outliers to a fingerprint background check?
I don't necessarily think it's the outlier. I think New York. Check New York system. New
Okay,
York.
but then there's the other 200 that don't require.
Well, but if we're the fourth largest city, soon to be the third, and New York is the first, you got
then the second and third.
Well, you got the second and third, but but I'm saying, but these are major centers. And we're Houston, we're the most diverse city in the country. We're the fourth, soon to be the third. I think there are a lot of people who would like to come into our marketplace. Okay, thank you very much, appreciate it. Thank you, council members.